everyone! So the lesson that I decided to do for our project is based on the concept of thunderstorms. Now, thunderstorms can be a complex concept for all students of all ages to understand. So what I did was I modified this lesson and experiment that I found online so that it focuses more on the younger grades. And I would say that the lesson I'm going to do is more for a first or second grade student. But again, it can be modified to a different grade level using your own best teacher judgment. So I don't have the book available to me, but this is a cover of the book Thundercake by Patricia Polacco. And this book isn't exactly about the scientific explanation or key vocabulary of thunderstorms, but I think it can be a great way to get the kids interested and engaged about the idea and some of the concepts of thunderstorms to lead into the experiment that we'll be doing later. The science standards this lesson would meet would be the weather and climate next generation standards that extend to all different types of weather, since the students will be exploring through this experiment how and why thunderstorms happen. I also came up with some other ways to tie in some of the Common Core ELA and math standards that I will mention later during the video as well, because I do think it is important for teachers to try and bring in all learning domains during any given lesson. And one thing that I thought was important about this lesson was the relevance of it. Kids hear thunder in their surroundings at all ages, so they can use their prior knowledge and make connections to the experiment and what's going on. So I think having an idea of what thunder actually is can be helpful for them, and I think it is appropriate at any age or level. So here I made a list of what you will need to do the experiment. The first thing you need will be a clear shoe-sized container. I use one of those smaller storage containers, but really it can be any type of container as long as it is decently sized and clear on all sides. Then you'll need some blue and red food coloring dye. You'll also need an ice cube tray, which you will make your blue ice cubes in, and then a white piece of paper, which I used, I taped it to one side of the container so that you could see what was happening inside while the experiment was happening more clearly. So this is what the setup for the experiment looks like before we actually dive into it. So I have a bucket of room temperature water that I filled up about 2/3 of the way with a white background. And then I have my blue ice cubes, which I just put the water in the ice cube tray and put a drop of blue food coloring in each one and mixed it with a spoon and then let it freeze for about 2 hours. And one important thing is we want the water to be settled, so if you do put the water in, let it sit for a minute and it'll give a better accurate representation. So let's start the experiment. I'm going to place 4 blue ice cubes on one side of the container, and these blue ice cubes represent the cold air, hence the color and it actually being cold. And then I'm going to place 3 to 4 red drops at the opposite side of the container, and the red drops will represent the hot air or a warm front in the atmosphere. And then we'll watch what happens. Here we go. And you just want to place them in nicely. Because we want the water to be settled. And now I'll place the 3 to 4 drops on the other end. And the kids can do this part. I think that'd be really fun and hands-on for them. So basically what is happening is the blue air or cold air mass is running into the warm air mass, which is our red part, and the cold air is forcing up the warmer red air, and it's creating unstable air. So I'll zoom in so that you can actually see the blue streams of water going underneath and pushing the red one up. Since we can't actually physically see air, the blue ice cubes on the right side represent the cold air masses that happen in our weather that push up the warm air mass, or the red food coloring on the left, creating the unstable air. So at this point, the cold air mass is now meeting with the warm air mass, and we can see that that blue or cold air mass is
pushing up the warmer air mass, which is the red, and it's just going to go right underneath it. Now, the science vocabulary word that can be mentioned to the students at this part of the explanation during the lesson is convection. And convection, simply put, means the action of the warm air rising and the cold air sinking, which plays a huge role in the creation of a thunderstorm. When these two types of air masses meet or collide at a point, it creates the unstable air. And this unstable air leads to what we know as thunderstorms. As we continue to watch over time, we will see the temperatures eventually evening out, giving us purple water. And this happens with real thunderstorms too. The rain from the storm actually cools the warm air mass and decreases or lessens the moisture in the atmosphere, which helps the air stabilize again. So this purple water that the students will see at the end represents the end of a thunderstorm when the air is stabilized again. I would probably do the experiment 2 to 3 times with the students watching, and I would give them an observation sheet to record what they see using red and blue pencils, and then we would talk about what is happening in our experiments. They would draw what they saw happening in the beginning, which would look something like the two colors on opposite ends of the container, followed by the middle, which would be the two colors meeting and going above or below each other, and the end, or the purple water, where they balance out or stabilize again.
So now that we finished the experiment and covered all the scientific components of the lesson, I want to mention how I would extend math into my lesson. So if we think back to the book that we read to start the lesson, Thunder Cake, it actually comes with a recipe to make your own Thunder Cake that the grandmother and her granddaughter made during the book, and that's attached to the end of the book. So I would have the students meet some of the measurement and data Common Core math standards by actually coming together and creating the cake in a hands-on way.
Here is a copy of the recipe and a picture of the actual Thunder Cake that I would use to tie in the math standards. I think we would practice using different types of measurement materials like cups and teaspoons. We could also explore how to accurately measure ingredients out, and I would actually have the students doing the measuring so it is hands-on for them. We could learn how to double the ingredients. We could talk about mixtures. So much more could be done with this simple recipe to tie in math standards.